So recently we had the Scorpio specs revealed on Digital Foundry, which those guys are pretty lucky to get those.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? On the machine, not that they got it.
Yeah, well, the specs are exactly what I think everybody thought they were going to be for the most part. I was a firm believer that they weren't going to switch processors. I know you might have sat on the other side of that argument.
I did. I was hoping for the Ryzen, or a variant of it of some kind.
But personally, I don't see this as a problem because it's fast. Like it's much faster than the original Xbox One for sure, and it's even faster than the PS4 Pro's cores.
I'll tell you what, actually, I was on the fence about it for a while, and then when they were talking about that DirectX 12 hardware chip,
yes,
that right there takes away so much from the CPU that then the CPU doesn't need to do all those calls. So
exactly,
it's even though you have the Jaguar enhanced cores, that DX12 chip in a way is a CPU in itself, strictly for DirectX 12 functions.
Right, and
so that's pretty awesome.
Let's not underplay the fact that it is a custom, like enhanced Jaguar core. It's not the standard core that's in the Pro and the original Xbox One.
No, it's definitely an enhancement and clocked quite a bit higher than the Xbox One original.
And on top of that, the guys at Digital Foundry, they discuss how the memory is much tighter integrated into the CPU operations by design. It's not so traditional, which could actually make that memory just far superior to what the others are using, including the original Xbox One, of course.
And plus the bandwidth's pretty high.
Yeah, it's all GDDR5, so that's awesome. It matches Sony in that respect versus the original Xbox One having just DDR3.
Yep.
But to me, the big surprise actually came when they started talking about the RAM. Not the speed so much, but the fact that it's 12 gigs. Like, I would not have expected that, but it is also very logical for a 4K machine.
Although, I believe they said it was 8 gigs is to the developers, and 4 gigs to the system, which, if I'm not mistaken, 1 gig of that acts as a buffer for backwards compatible Xbox One games. So, like, if a developer had used the SRAM before, that kind of takes its place. Even though it's not as fast, it should get the job done.
Yeah, well, even so, it's still considerably more RAM for the games.
Oh, it's more than even the PS4 Pro.
Yeah, like 3 gigs more, isn't it? Because doesn't the Pro have like 5 available for games, or 6 maybe?
I think it's 6.
I'd have to look it up. Either way, it's 2 or 3 gigs more available to games alone.
Yeah.
So that's substantial. Other than that, like, obviously it has the 4K Blu-ray drive.
And that right there,
that makes it better than the Pro. Yeah, it makes it better than the Pro in my eyes, but I have a 1S, so we'll see. But the one thing I've surprisingly seen some mixed opinions on is the hard drive being a 1 terabyte.
Yeah, I mean, unless they make it kind of like Sony's, where you can take it out and put a new one in. I mean, because external drives, sure, that's okay, but I don't necessarily want a ton of wires from drives hanging out or whatever, the case may be.
Well,
so
I've seen people complain about it, but at the same time, I've seen people praise them for finally putting at least a terabyte in, because let's be honest, a terabyte should have been in the original Xbox One and PS4, because 500 gig was way, way, way too little for.
Well, hell, when I bought my PS4, the first thing I did was put a 2 terabyte drive in there. 500 gigs once I cut it.
I eventually did, but even so, it's like it's adequate now.
Yeah.
But like had it like my Xbox One, I got the terabyte one, so that was immediately I could feel that there was more space just as I got more games. It's like my hard drive wasn't filled up after 5 games, so yay. But I ended up having to do the same thing there and get a 2 terabyte external. Now, that brings me to the next point I think we need to talk about here. What questions need to be answered first? Like, what needs to be answered at, like, E3?
Well, I'm curious. I don't know if it needs to be answered at E3, but...
or any time in the near future.
Did they say what bus speed was for the drive? Is it SATA 3?
That's an interesting point.
I don't remember hearing that.
Let me just look something up. And what else... I mean, price is probably the most obvious thing,
I did.
Right?
Well, I saw analysts are predicting that the cost of the machine itself for Microsoft is about $600 to $650. So they're estimating that it'll sell for $700, which to me is ridiculous.
Okay, so I've learned ever since the Dreamcast days, I've learned that analysts, they're kind of dumb. They're no better than us in a majority of ways because they're just taking guesses.
That must be like the best job on the planet.
Seriously, right? And you're getting paid to make those guesses. So I don't know. Like I understand looking at this tech, thinking from a PC builder mindset, I'm like, $700 would make this kind of build in the PC space semi-feasible, minus obviously the 4K Blu-ray drive, because I haven't even tried to price one of them if you can even buy them for a PC. I don't know.
I don't know.
It's beyond something I'd even bother getting for a PC. Like optical media, this isn't the Stone Ages, but... No offense, console guys. I buy console optical discs too, okay? So when you're building a PC, you don't really think, hey, I'm going to stick this DVD drive or disc into my computer and play me some whatever, World of Warcraft. Like, no, you just download it and play it. Anyway, I don't know. The price, it seems about right from a PC mindset, but at the same time, you know that that's not... The cost of the machine is not necessarily something that can be easily guessed because you know there's a deal between AMD and Microsoft on this hardware. Yeah. And there's more than likely there's a hefty deal. And, you know, both parties probably stand to benefit a lot from it. And I just can't see Microsoft being so stupid after being so smart since Phil Spencer took over to release a $700 system. Like, even if it is aimed at a niche crowd being, you know, like the core gamer crowd, $700 is stupid expensive. $600 is stupid expensive. $500 is really pushing it. But I also can't see it being much less, if any less, than $500. If they can work some magic and sell it for $450, that's the sweet spot for what it offers.
Honestly, I think they need to price it the same as the PS4 Pro.
That'd be ideal, though it's really hard to imagine that they could actually do that. Like, let's assume that analyst is right, and it does cost them $650 to make one. If they're going to sell it at $400 and take a $250 loss on each unit, that's just asinine.
Yeah, well, Sony did it with the PS3 back in the day.
Yeah, and it took them like 10 years to catch up in sales. And even then, look at the damage. Sony is a sinking ship with only PlayStation keeping it afloat.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, that and cameras.
Like, they're not doing great. And
yeah,
it's those kind of decisions that did that. Do you think, though, with the leadership of Phil Spencer, who's done a bang-up job of fixing the debacle that was the Xbox
Could you
One,
imagine? Could you imagine what it would have been like if he was the one in charge from the beginning?
I know. It'd be different. It'd probably continue the dominance from the 360 era to now, kind of like Sony with the PS1 to PS2. But Don Matrick, yeah. I hope he loves his Kinect still, because nobody else does. Well, apparently some people do. There's a forum out there on Microsoft's site that they have a lot. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of people wanting a built-in Kinect port on the system for the Scorpio. Why? There's no new games coming out for it. Nothing uses it.
Now, I do have one thing that I wouldn't mind knowing. Like, okay, with the PS4, I have the camera. If I choose to stream, I can be on camera, or at least have my audio, like a microphone. With the Xbox, you had the Kinect as your camera. I don't know, does it actually support regular webcams, or is that something they're going to add later? I mean,
I doubt it.
That's something I wouldn't mind knowing.
I doubt it supports it, but if you look at the original 360, it did have a camera before Kinect, and it was basically a webcam.
Yep.
They called
Xbox
it like
Vision
Cam or something. Yeah.
Yep.
So
which worked with PC too.
Yeah, it was a webcam. And honestly, if they enable you to use USB-based webcams so that you can, have a little box in the corner while you're streaming, that would be wise. Especially considering they make some good webcams, such as the one I'm using right now. So, I don't know. We'll see. Not to rush this one too much, but is there any other things that they need to tackle? I mean, obviously games. Everybody's saying they need to show what the games are gonna, what the system's gonna do for games. But what else?
That's the thing. That's like one of the main topics right now. If you read all the articles out there, they have the hardware. I mean, no doubt about it. The thing's a beast. But where's their first party titles? They're I hate to compare it to the Vita, but that's kind of like what it is. I mean, obviously the Vita's a sunken ship being held on by indies now, but when it was relevant, Sony didn't have the first party titles, and that's what made it sink. Yeah. Well, now the Xbox is in the same position. Where's the first party titles? Sure, you've got your Gears of War 4, Halo, and whatever else, but that's how many? You can't count on. I mean, obviously Forza 7's coming out. It's not announced, but we kind of have an idea.
Seriously, it obviously is.
But that's not a system seller game. I mean, for the die-hard Sims, yeah, but you're not a die-hard racing sim guy. You're not going to go out and buy that because you want it in 4K HDR 60 frames per second racing. I don't think so.
I think that this is definitely something they need to answer by E3.
Big time.
By the time that show is done, people have to have a clear idea of what's happening with the Scorpio in terms of games. But I have a few ideas that I think are playing into this. The Scorpio's power is ridiculous, obviously, but I think that a lot of that is because of their Play Anywhere initiative. Because, okay, maybe not specifically the Play Anywhere thing, but the fact that they are really trying to make the Windows Store a viable gaming platform on PC, like in the vein of Steam or Origin or something. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of work, but as long as Phil Spencer is spearheading that, there's a good chance that Scorpio was like, look, this game, let's take Sea of Thieves from Rare. Okay, their first original game in who knows how long. Since
it looks good too.
It looks great, and let's say they release it and it has a big old sticker or something on it that says Scorpio capable or Scorpio powered, just for, we know it's not going to be called that, but just for this conversation. Now let's say that they partner up with different PC manufacturers that they release similar spec PCs, and they also share that branding that the Scorpio has on those PCs, so that when you buy the game digitally on either one, it's a play anywhere game, it's Scorpio, you get the same experience on both sides. I could see that being a thing that Microsoft would absolutely do, just because they want Windows Store to be a thing really bad. Now, would it be the smartest thing? I don't know. We'll see. A lot of people didn't think Steam was a great idea at first either. And here we are.
No, I wasn't back in the day.
No, it's problematic. Just like Origin was about the worst service I had ever had to use.
It's still kind of bad.
It's actually pretty great now. It's pretty good. Like, it's above neutral in the positive zone for me. And it was like despicable, like stay clear of it, but now it's getting better. And I think Windows Store is getting there very slowly too. I still have a lot of gripes about that, but it's also much younger than most services out there. And before I forget, I looked up the bus speed of SATA 3, and that is 6 gigabit. So that means that this is SATA 2 for sure.
That is poopy.
Yeah.
That really, really, really sucks ass.
Well, does the PS3 use SATA 3?
The PS4 Pro uses SATA 3.
Okay. Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. I mean,
the only thing I can think of is maybe because the memory bandwidth is so high, which it's over 100 gigabit or over 100 gigabytes per second faster than the PS4 Pro.
Right. I think that has to do with the CPU architecture.
There's probably a lot of things going on in there that they didn't want to talk about.
Well, did you see that the render they had at E3 last year, which, if you remember, run that while we're talking.
Yeah.
That render is actually pretty representative of the actual hardware. Like, it literally looks like that as far as design goes, which means that you have the CPU, but then you have like all the RAM modules surrounding it very closely. And I have a feeling that that's why it's a custom CPU trying to pick up the extra speed. Think like HBM that AMD also makes, which is much faster than...
Which we were hoping that they'd put in there. We were definitely hoping they'd put it in there.
I mean, this could be a similar thing. Maybe not HBM, obviously, but it could be a way to boost that bandwidth. Because obviously, I mean, looking at this chart anyway, it's obviously faster than the Pro in terms of memory bandwidth. So there has to be some magic going on that we don't see. There has to be something. So, in closing then, are you excited?
I'm holding that until E3, to be honest. As it stands right now, if I had the available funds, I would probably be getting both the PS4 Pro and the Scorpio.
Mm-hmm.
But the question would be, which one would I get first?
Yeah. Because
the Pro, essentially, it's like... My PS4 plays all those games, so why, I don't need to upgrade. But the Scorpio, even though the Xbox One or One S would essentially play all those games, the Scorpio is like a leap forward in visuals. I mean, it's kind of weird. This is almost like a generation jump.
That's what I was going to say. It's almost like a whole new console generation. But
it's weird.
They're insisting that it's not.
We'll see how. I want to see how it plays out. I want to see what they plan on doing. I know that it's the machine that my brother's planning to get because he hasn't purchased an Xbox One yet, and he's an Xbox fan. He's been stuck on a 360. I feel bad for him.
Well, being a primarily console player,
yeah,
it does definitely put you in an interesting spot because you have an Xbox One, you have a PS4, and either the Pro or the Scorpio, they're gonna make your games better on either side.
Yep.
And honestly, I mean, let's be realistic. We know you love Sony, so I'm kind of leaning that way.
I'm not like, it's not like that at all.
Well, come on, you just posted a few Gran Turismo videos I seen.
Because I like Gran Turismo.
And you don't want to play that extra pretty? Come on, let's be real. But the point I'm trying to get, besides busting your chops, is on my side, I do PC game a lot. And as appealing as the Scorpio is, and as impressed as I've been so far with my Xbox One S, it's like I can probably get most of those same games on my PC and run them as good or better than the Scorpio. So that kind of makes it like, maybe I'll just get a Pro because I can't run PlayStation games on my PC, not PS4 games on my PC anyway.
Without paying for that streaming service.
Yeah, which we should talk about sometime, but the thing is like, I want to play Horizon Zero Dawn in 4K. I can't do that on my PC. Now it'll take Gears of War 4. Yeah, I want to play that in 4K, so I'll just boot it up on my computer because I got both versions through the Play Anywhere program. And if they continue that program, PC players benefit. You see what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. Like, I really like what I see with Scorpio, but why would I buy one when I have a PC that can do it just as good or better? So, I don't know. If it's too expensive, it's gonna... I don't know. We have a lot of questions we need answered.
Yeah, well, on E3, we'll hopefully have that all set.
Yep, that's right.